Happy New Year everyone, I'm glad to be back in 2021 and taking a look at one of the first budget smartphones of the year in the Redmi 9T. Now at the time of recording, the phone hasn't officially been launched in Malaysia yet, so I don't know the official pricing. Regardless, let's quickly unbox the device and I will move into the hands-on portion of the video. Okay, let's get started with the unboxing. This is brand new and sealed, so let's do the honors by removing the seal. As typical of Xiaomi and the Redmi brand, their boxes are always very clean, very minimalistic. There isn't really a lot to look at, but my model comes with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage. I'm not sure how many storage variants we'll get in Malaysia yet because, as I mentioned earlier, the official launch hasn't started yet. This is also the sunrise orange color model, and I'll get into what other colors you get later on. Designed by Redmi. So in this box, you probably get your usual manuals and phone case. So yes, your manuals and your phone case. Phone case here is transparent and it's pretty thick as well. Pretty standard stuff there. Nice. And we get to the phone. This phone is pretty hefty, but I am loving the color. Again, this is the orange variant. Got this sticker at the back. Let's see if I can remove it. Yes. Okay, cool. Look at the phone. It's so shiny. It's seriously as shiny and as vibrant in real life as it looks on camera right now. Yeah, so let's move the phone aside for a moment and see what else we get in the box. So as usual, we get a USB Type-C charging cable and the charging adapter that will charge your phone with 18 watts of power. So that's it, let's boot up the phone and I'll see you then. So I booted up the phone and let's take a look at the design for a bit. Now this, as I mentioned earlier, is the orange variant. I'm not sure you can see it on camera. Yes, and trust me, it looks as vibrant in real life as it does on the camera. It also comes in other colors such as carbon grey, twilight blue, and ocean green. So if you're not a fan of this very vibrant orange, you can go for those colors. The back panel here is plastic, but it is textured and anti-fingerprint. It does make a really cool sound like this, if you can hear on my mic. And you also get the giant Redmi logo here, engraved right into the back panel. Overall, I like the design of the phone. It doesn't look too flashy, it is familiar to a certain extent, but it keeps things interesting with the texture and the very nice orange color. The camera bump is nice and flat, and we see 4 lenses here, as well as, what does it say here, 48 megapixels super quad camera. Yes, very nice indeed. You do get the side-mounted fingerprint sensor here, and really not much else to look at. So now let's move on to the display. This comes with a 6.53-inch Full HD IPS panel, and of course you get a drop notch punch hole at the top here. Now the colors pop and it gets relatively bright at 400 nits, which is very nice. There's really not much to complain or celebrate here. It is tried and true, and I like it for the most part. Now before I go further, I want to mention that this phone is eerily similar to the Poco M3, both in its specs and cameras. So when it comes to the hardware, this comes with a Snapdragon 662 with 4GB of RAM. My unit here comes with 64GB of internal storage, and I'm not quite sure if you get higher storage variants, so we'll have to find out when the phone officially launches. Now with the Snapdragon 662 chipset, as we've experienced before on the Poco M3, it handles most mobile games quite well, and you can play titles like Mobile Legends and Call of Duty at medium-high settings with no problem. But if let's say you want to play games like Genshin Impact, which is more resource intensive, then you're gonna have to play on low. Even then, you'll have to stick at 30 frames. So moving on to what will really sell this phone, it's camera setup. It's got a 48 megapixel main lens and 8 megapixel ultra wide lens, 2 megapixel macro lens, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. It improves over the Poco M3 with an extra lens, and over the regular Redmi 9 with a generally higher resolution camera setup. So enough of me talking, I'm just gonna go try out the cameras now and let you see how they look like. So I've taken the shots and I'm just gonna have a quick look at them. As usual of a Xiaomi smartphone, the photography software is always gonna oversaturate colors a bit, especially when it comes to greens. Trees, grasses and bushes will always look greener than they actually are. But in this picture, everything is crisp at 12 megapixels. Really no complaints there, especially when you feed the camera a lot of light. So the 8 megapixel ultra wide lens also does a good job at not warping the edges too much. There is slight warping, it's not too visible, right? And this zooms up to 8 times. I wouldn't say it's usable for creative purposes, but it's there and you can use it to look at menus from really far away if you want. When it comes to the 48 megapixel mode, well, it's a 48 megapixel mode. The image is definitely much sharper than the 12 megapixel mode, and you get a lot more detail here. And if you feed it a lot of light, as usual, it will perform well. So nothing to complain here. When it comes to selfies, the 8 megapixel selfie lens does a good job, especially again if you're in a well-lit room such as our studio here. The portrait mode does a good job at creating a nice bokeh effect in the background, and it doesn't really eat up a lot of the subject matter, although here I do see it eats up a bit of my hair. Now when it comes to the portrait mode using the back camera, it does a good job for the most part at blurring out the background, albeit certain parts of our camera equipment here, which is our subject matter, gets blurred out too. Now when it comes to macro mode, you will have to turn this on in the settings menu, and the effective range is about 5 cm. And well, as typical of a regular macro lens, it works fairly well. The image is sharp, the subject is very crisp, and it blurs out the background quite nicely. Last but not least, this phone has a 6000 mAh battery and supports up to 18 watts of fast charging via USB-C, which is a really nice touch. So what do I think about the Redmi 9T? Well, at the time of recording, we don't know the official price yet, as mentioned earlier. So considering it's so much like the Poco M3, we can expect it to cost around the 600 to 700 ringgit range. And for that price, I think if you're into something that looks more mainstream, something that still looks pretty sleek and premium, but handles as well as the Poco M3, this is well worth it. It's got that very capable Snapdragon 662 chipset, its photography capabilities is just as good, especially with the 48 megapixel lens, and it's got a pretty nice display and large battery as well. But in any case, we will update you with any new information that we get, especially the official pricing when the phone is officially launched. It will all be in the description box below, so remember to stay tuned, subscribe, like our video. This is Victor signing off, bye bye.